fact, we were in for a few minutes about getting the gigs. And I love that is such a great way to start. And you probably, each of you have had an opportunity to teach in your ward or some kind of, place like that. But I do want to just give a little plug for offering your services to the Relief Society or to your stake women's conference or whatever, to your stake Relief Society president. I know there's a tricky line there where you don't want to be obnoxious, but you want to be able to offer your services, because a lot of times you've been in those callings where you're like, oh, who's good to speak about X, Y, and Z, like organizing. Ingrid, they're always looking for speakers for that. So be thinking what needs do you see in your ward, your stake, in maybe organizations you're a part of or book clubs or whatever, and you see this need, and then say, hey, I don't know if you've considered, but I could actually help fill that, or it could be somebody else, but it could be filled this way. I just had this experience a couple of weeks ago. Our Utah, I don't know if you guys got this in Utah, but they just had that regional training, and we actually just watched all of it this last Sunday. But that's where our bishopric all spoke at the pulpit and talked about our meetings need to be more reverent, and the talks need to be 7 to 10 minutes. And when they speak, they need to be centered on Christ, and they need to not ramble, no travel logs, no whatever. Did you guys get any of that? Because this came down from the area 70s, and then came down to the stake presidencies, and then they were bringing it into the bishopric. So I don't know if you guys got it, but it was for the Utah area. So anyway, we've had that. If you haven't had it yet, you may get it. So anyway, they were speaking about that, and I'm sitting there listening. And what do you think my thoughts are? Love this. Not going to happen, because people don't know how to do it. They don't. It is so hard to give a good 7 to 10 minute talk. It's hard. Even for people who are speakers, it's hard to do something of substance in 7 to 10 minutes. If you don't know a few things about what you're doing, you're going to try to cram too much in. You're going to ramble. You're going to take longer telling your stories than you think you are. You're going to start with your introduction. It's going to probably take 5 minutes, and you'll think it's one. And it'll be 5 minutes because you're rambling and I'm so nervous. And yeah, they asked me to speak about this, but I really didn't want to. But now it drives me crazy. So I'm listening in the audience, and my feeling thought is, I'm going to see if they need help. Can I give a little handout? Could I teach a little class? Could I even just come in and do 10 minutes of something that you could do that could just help this be more effective, so that it's going to get the result that they're looking for? Because they're going to ask for it and they're not going to be able to deliver it. So I was going to text my bishopric during the week, and I was just like, okay, now I feel really weird. Like, I'm going to be like, I'm all that, and I'm going to teach everyone how to speak. And so I was like, nah, I don't want to do that. And then the thought came on Sunday. I still hadn't done anything about it. We have our stake offices right there, because ours is in the stake center, and it just walk on by. And if the stake people are there, because a lot of times the door's closed, then maybe talk to them. So I was being really, I will go and do, right? Just like maybe, and if that works out perfectly, I'll say. So anyway, I'm walking down, and then a lady starts talking to me, and I went, oh my gosh, that's right. And it came to mind. I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, oh, I should probably go do something. So I walked in, and here's the counselor, and he's standing right there in an open doorway of the room, just standing there chatting with somebody. And I was like, so I said, hey, can I talk to you? It's nothing scary. He's like, okay, all right. So popped in, talked to him, and he was like, yes. He said, I'll take this to the stake president. But he said, how would you feel about training the bishops? We put this to the bishops so we could have you train the bishops. That way, when they call someone to give a talk, they're supposed to tell them all of these guidelines. So maybe we could give them something that would help them to be able to know what to do. I'm not sure, but that's what I'm thinking that we could do. And then the bishops can take it from there, and they could invite you into their ward councils, and maybe you could actually teach in the ward councils. And I'm like, okay, this is going faster than I thought it would be. But I already worked up an outline on Monday, on New Year's Day, and I sent it to him, and I just saw that he saw my email today and said, hey, this looks great. I'm going to run this by the stake president. Now you can imagine when I'm typing up this thing, I already have this thing. He said, do you have an outline? And I said, yeah, it's actually called, I forgot I'm giving a sacrament talk outline. That's the name of it. So it's just like the hook and 3 points and and whatever. Anyway, and he's like, okay. So then I worked it up differently, shorter, and did a sample outline of what it would look like if you actually gave a sample talk, and then a couple of tips and tools that they could use, and then kept it pretty brief, but then sent that. And the whole time, what do you think I'm thinking? This is dribble. Who do I think that I am? Like, this is a stake presidency. And I even said in the thing, correct any false doctrine that you see, right? Because I was like, the goal of a sacrament meeting talk is to focus on Christ and lead to conversion. Like, that's our goal, right? And so I put focus on Christ, lead to conversion, and engage the congregation. Those are the three things. And I'm like, I don't even know, because I read, the Teaching the Savior's Way and all of that stuff and whatever. And you can't put all of that on a piece of paper. So I'm like, those are the things that I think would be the most important for them to know. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go along. So anyway, what I'm saying is look for the need and then fill it the best way you can, and just be open to say, I'm open. If you like this, if you don't, if you need me to change it, but I'm happy to do something. I feel passionate about this and I've had some experience in this. And so I'd be happy to share what I know that could at least up level people to the next level. So I don't know. We'll see what will happen. But I thought it was funny that I want to talk about this today. And then that just happened. So springboarding off of that, that's what led me to speak for EFY and speak for Education Week and then speak at Women's Conference. That's exactly how it happened. Is I saw a need, thought I can try to fill that. And I look back and go, I can't believe that I taught those things. Hopefully they'll forget the false doctrine, but I started somewhere and springboarded. So that is my question for you ladies. Right now is when you're looking ahead now to these speaking gigs you're going to certify, where do you want to speak? Do you want to coach people? Do you want to speak on stage? Where do you see yourself right now? Not just in the future, down the road. We talked about that goal earlier, but right now in the next 3 to 6 months, how do you see yourself using your speaking? Ingrid.
Probably in wards and stake relief societies.
And I would invite you to consider, just like I just did, I would have gone to my bishop, but one of the things that was nagging in the back of my mind, love my bishopric. They're a little slow on turnaround, like really slow. So I know I had this vision of the last scene in Indiana Jones of the warehouse of my text or my email lost in the warehouse. And I was like, that could be a problem. So then I think that's why I kind of held back a little bit. And then the Spirit was kind of like, go to the source. So I encourage you to go to the highest source that would have the most impact that makes sense. Go ahead.
Can I just say one thing, Connie? You're like, I'm going to the stake presidency. Like, who am I, right? You had those thoughts. You are a trained speaker in a national organization, maybe a vice president or something. If I have president, something, if I remember correctly. And our church is run by lay leaders. So you actually don't diss yourself. Like, you have literal training in speaking, and you're going to the stake presidency who has like some priesthood authority and stewardship, but that doesn't make them professional speakers. And if the area leadership of the church is saying the talks need to be better, you're the perfect person to advise on that.
Also, you should be going to church headquarters, not just church.
Yeah, well, I'm getting there. Hold on. I know somebody, but also, every person in the church gives talks. Pretty much every member has to give a talk on a somewhat regular basis. That would be fantastic. Education Week content is teaching people how to give a talk in a meeting, because every person has that panic. Every person goes, oh crap, I have to give a talk in sacrament meeting. I don't know how to say anything besides, hi, let me introduce me and my husband. We're both going to BYU. That's my ward. We've been married for 3 weeks. Every talk starts out like that. In fact, the best, most memorable sacrament meeting talk in 30 years of living here is the 15-year-old girl who was giving the youth speaker stood up and said, I'd like to start by introducing me and my husband. The congregation laughed for 3 straight minutes because every single talk starts in our ward. Anyway.
That is a great hook. Oh my gosh, that's perfect. Ingrid, I love that you shared that. Thank you for giving me that inspired thought, and Susie, that vision, right? I actually have thought for years, that would be my dream, is to roll out something with the church that we would actually roll this out into wards and stakes where everyone would go through a little 4-week thing. You would just go through it and everyone know. And remember, I think I told you, I don't know if I told you guys, but Dan Clark, we were talking one time, we were at lunch and we were talking one time and we were talking about this very thing about everyone. It's like burns in my soul. I don't want to take a lot of time on this, sorry, but it burns in my soul of helping people to step up and speak up. Like, I can't even tell you how much this burns in my soul. And he was saying, oh, when I was bishop, because he's a global speaker. He's like, when I was bishop, I created a course and everyone in the ward had to go through it. And you know why? Because I was going to call people to callings and I needed them to know how to teach so that I knew they would show up and they would accept the calling. So I put everyone through that speaker course and I went, bingo. Oh, secretest desire, just so you know, is to spearhead an arm of this in the church. Like we do this and we send you women out to go out and teach this army of speakers who are like,
happy to.
like that Hidden Figures, if you've seen the movie, and she's like, oh, she wants to get the IBM big computer up. And she's like, well, do you have people who can run it? She's like, we're ready. Because she's already been training them. And so they come in force. If you've seen the movie, they're in the hallway and there's this force of women and like, dang, dang, dang. And they're ready. Like, that's what I see. You guys are the hidden figures of speaking in the church. That's what I see. So anyway.
Well, if you need Elder Christopherson's cell phone number, let me know.
Okay, let's chat. Let's chat. Let me pray.
I mean, don't we all?
Let's chat, because it depends. If the stake presidency goes for this and we beta test it, and this is my thing, ladies, beta test. Go and do the Relief Society course, the stake women's conference, whatever, and beta test it. See what the result is. And then if there's enough of an interest and enough of response, then take it to a little bit higher person or a bigger thing or BYU or whatever and say, hey, have you guys considered? Because I'll bet you cookies to a donut, somebody has needed that. And they're like, I don't know who, whatever, you know, your uncle, your aunt, I don't know. So I love this. So I could beta test this. You're making me think big. I love this. This is going to be a keynote story. You know this, right? This is going to be, and I've got a recording of it, of the actual creation process of this. We could take it, beta test it. And this is what I did, ladies, with my pilot program with Faithful, Fit, and Fabulous. That is, I actually had the book in my purse today. My Faithful, Fit, and Fabulous. Oh, there.
It's on the shelf. It's right up there.
Sending you a yummy. So that's what I did. I thought I have this idea. I beta tested it with women and I said, I want to beta test this in a stake setting, because I want to see if this would work. And I can tell them, I can show them this would work. So I don't know, maybe this is helpful and it wasn't planned, but I think this is really important. So I took this idea of these areas in people's lives, right? These 8 areas, that's what Faithful, Fit, and Fabulous is, the 8 key areas in a woman's life, starting with holy habits, then create a life plan, then joy, because joy was absolutely needing to be first. And then get fit and fabulous, then get organized, then get your finances in order, your relationships, and then get your finances and blah, blah, blah. So it was 8 areas. So then I went to the stake president and I said, I would love to do this for free. There's no selling. There's no nothing, no back end or anything. I just want to share this and I want to see how this would work in a religious setting, because I think the women in the church need this. And he said, okay, let's do this pilot program. So I got it all set up. I did a special packet for it. I did a survey that was before and after so we could show results and we could actually see what happened with the women. I was supposed to do 3 classes and they begged me. I'm not just saying that, they begged me to do 3 more. And I did. And then after I did those 3, they were like, can you do any more? And I said, no, I'm so sorry. The good feeling's gone because they're going to be so sick of me. So we opened it up to the stake and we had about 100 total women that came. And guess who was sitting in there? Lamyra, who ended up coming to work for me, with me. We said, work with me, but for 6 years. But she was in that class and I was teaching them how to do a life vision and how to do the 3 focus areas and then the goals. And this life vision afterwards, she said, I've never even thought that I could do that. Like I never even considered that. And that's when she put on her life board that she wanted to work with me. And then fast forward a year or 2 years later is when I called her and I said, hey, your name's coming to mind. I don't know. What do you do? And she was like, I want to work with you. So anyway, that is like, this is a whole keynote story, honestly. So anyway, did that beta testing. Guess what we found? The people in those 8 areas, the women, they were at 3s and 4s. Okay. By the end of this, they were at 8, 9, and 10. It was clear to see. And I had them fill out the goals each week and I had them do their accountability. This is before like all this online stuff that we could do. This was back in Neanderthalic times. And we saw that success. So that beta test gave me proof. And I actually used that in my keynotes. And I actually did go the next step and I sent it into the General Relief Society presidency. And I said, I don't know if you're interested, but if you're thinking about making changes in Relief Society, here's a thought. Doesn't even have to come back to me. I'm just happy to give it completely free. And who was it? I can't remember. I've got it somewhere. But they sent it back to me. It was one of the counselors in the General Relief Society presidency. And she said, we're not looking to make changes this time, but we are going to keep this on file, which is a nice way of saying, no, thank you. But they said, we're going to keep it on file. We like what you have shared. And I was like, okay, I've done my duty, my dead guy duty. I sent that The Lord knows if he wants it, then he can't. So I just want you to know that's kind of a process of, I have an idea and what do I do with it? I start teaching at this ward level and then go to the stake level maybe, and then education week, and then blah, 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 blah. And you don't even have to do it linear. You can skip, you can a Christmas story, you can triple dog dare, and you can skip steps, but you could just keep doing your thing and expanding in a really organic way. So for whatever that was worth, hopefully that was helpful.
Is it okay? So at this Relief Society event I have in March, she wanted my my bio and my headshot and everything because she's like, we want to put it on our Stake Relief Society Instagram page. Yeah, I sent it to her this morning. Is it okay for me to ask if I can share it on mine to be like, hey, I'm speaking at this event if anybody local wants to come? Because that also gets out to my audience, like, I'm a speaker if you want me. Is that like,
yes, triple
is
yes.
Is that tactful? Is that okay?
My policy is always ask the person who asked you to speak. And generally speaking, even if the first counselor asks me, I will say, can you run this by the Relief Society president? Because what I've had in the past is the person who's in charge did not run it by them. And they're like, hey, wait, I didn't know about that, right? So I would go to the highest source again and just get it approved. And then that way, you're set. But absolutely, they should probably not have any problem at all because you're advertising this awesome event. Another thing, if you want to, you can also do, and I encourage this, once they've got their little thing, that the flyer they put out or the poster they put out, put a copy of that as a post, an actual post, not just in the story, and do both. Story, reel, post, whatever, and say, I'm so excited to be speaking at XYZ.
Okay. I figured it's like advertisement for them and for me.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And you do the pre, the during, and the after. Look, I'm so excited. I'm speaking. Hey, I'm speaking today. Oh, I just got done speaking and I'm so excited. Some pictures with some women. I usually do it out in the foyer. I don't do it in the chapel, generally speaking. Some people will take a picture with me and I'm not thinking because the cultural hall is open, but people want to take a picture in the rostrum. I'm like, no, actually, no. So out in the foyer, but definitely take pictures and connect and all of that. Absolutely. So good. I'm so excited for you to have these opportunities. Okay. Anyone else have places they want to speak or where they're thinking they're going to be speaking the next 3 to 6 months?
I think some women's retreats would be fun to reach out to people for women's retreats, and definitely Relief Society, like enrichment nights, which I have done before, but this will be fun because I'll be much better now that I'm being certified.
And that gives you that added credibility. I would encourage you to go higher, like go to the stake level, go to the stake Relief Society and say, you know what, Studio 5, lead with your most authoritative and credible. I'm a Studio 5 contributor and I teach, as I've been doing it for 7 years. And I've learned some life hacks that will really help the women not feel worried about with this whole word of wisdom, how to eat healthy, what's not, blah, 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 and make it fun. I would love to do a class on that if you need it, but go to that stake level. And when I was speaking, I got to where I wouldn't do individual wards anymore. After you've done a few wards, then you just say, you know what, I actually do multi-wards or stake. That's where I would get to, so that I'm not doing, because I would go and speak somewhere and then they'd be like, oh, can you come to my ward? Can you come to my ward? And I'm like, I can't take that much time out. And especially when you only have, not only, but you know what I mean? Like 30, 40 women at a time. If you do a stake, you're going to get so many more women at one kind of a hit. Now, that's not hard and fast, but that's what was easier and more effective for me.
No, I think that's good advice. And the guy who was filming my ad the other day, we got talking about what I do, and he's like, I'm in this business mastermind group. He's like, with really wealthy people. He's like, they're always looking for good speakers. He's like, because you speak. I don't know how that came up, but I said, yeah, I speak. And so he's like, that would be great because everybody needs, health stuff. Anyway, so I'm like, perfect. He goes, I'm going to run it by him. So
and I would encourage you to find those retreats, in my personal opinion, those retreats that you would be the complement, right? So yoga, mindfulness, self-esteem, wellness retreats, then you would be that food piece that would totally fit. Same thing with conferences. If women are doing these women's conferences, they always need something about health, food, whatever, your positive connection to food, making it easy, simple, whatever that conference theme would be. And you could kind of make a facet of what you do with it. So many ways that you could be a big help to that. So I would go on and look for those kind of conferences in your SEO, right? Women's conferences plus health, plus mindfulness, plus wellness, whatever, and look for that in your SEO research.
Okay.
And it'll pop up like these 20 conferences that are going on, and they may have already passed, but then you'll know what to tag for the next year, and reach out to them, 9 months ahead so that you can let them know, and then refresh that 6 months ahead, refresh it 3 months ahead. Because you think that people, plan ahead for like 6-9 months, but I will tell you, the speaking circuit and the speaking industry has shifted, especially since COVID. So people are waiting longer oftentimes to get a speaker because they know that there's so many speakers who need the work. So it is something to consider of, if you think, oh, they've already, like there's a conference coming up, but it's only 3 months away, they probably already have a speaker. It's worth trying.
Okay.
Okay, Amber, where do you see yourself speaking?
Wards and stakes, like those events. I would do retreats. I forgot the sister project that Wendy does, which, by the way, did you hear that side topic really fast? She and her husband got called to be mission president. Did you hear that? They
Yes,
find
we're
out on
waiting to hear
Friday
where
they're going. I know. I don't know.
Waiting to hear.
Out Friday.
She was so sweet. She called me and I was like, what? And she's like, you can't say anything. I'm like,
it's like not a surprise at all. So they're not doing a January or an April retreat, and instead we do an 8-week course. So I am speaking at one of those as well. Where was I going with this? Oh, like retreats. I would do all of that. I don't have anything past March, but I got 2 gigs out of the one I did in November. So I'm just kind of going to see what happens with the young adult one and the March one. And I don't know. I'm just kind of leaving it up to the Lord. But I would love to do, since I've done a stake one, and then I have a couple more coming up, something bigger than stake. I don't know what they have beyond like education week or something. Like, I don't know if there's like a middle ground.
Yeah, well, look and see what they have for YSAs or mids, mid singles and things like that. Look and see what they have in your area for that, because I know there's a gal here for Utah. She's over like 112 stakes and things like that. And so she gets speakers for the firesides. That's one of the ones that I spoke at. And that's where the singles would come in, and then you get a speaker every month. So check that out.
How would I find that?
I would look, there should be something on your stake directory that would say something about YSAs or single programs. And I would check with your stake leaders, because they would be the ones that would know who. It's usually a stake calling.
Okay. I get a speaking gig and a potential husband all in one.
There you go. See, I love it. It's a twofer. Ingrid, thank you so much. Really quick before you go, but just know, Instagram, podcast, guesting. I would encourage you to consider that, where it's not a full-on speaking thing. You're welcome to go, and I can put it in the WhatsApp. But think about that. What podcast do you know that you could guest on? And because you've certified in speaking, you can do a podcast series using our podcast on our Purpose-Filled Women. So if you want to do like, Ingrid, this is the idea that I had for you. I don't know if I mentioned it to you, but there's so many live nativities. You could be the hub of the live nativities. You could be the one that interviews people and say, what worked for you? How did that go for you? What are some tips and tools that you have for people who want to do a live nativity? You can be the hub. And I invite you ladies to think about this. It's so much better to be the hub and the source and the gatherer. That will give yourself traction faster and more fulfilling if you do it that way, instead of always trying to seek out those one-off kind of opportunities. You become the hub. You become the person that you're like, I am all about health and wellness. I'm inviting this guest to come in and speak. And this guest, you can do a 3-part series on our podcast. And I can talk to you more about that next time. But just know you can do that. And it would be maybe 15, 20-minute interview, be super like short, brief, but chunky. And then we can promote it on our stuff and then send them to you. So keep that in mind.
Yes, I know of one already. There's a stake down in Thousand Oaks, California, which is right near where I grew up. And I have a friend who lives down there, and they do live nativity, and we follow each other's Instagram. So I watch them. So there's just the potential connection right there. Kind of cool.
And that's what I've said before with Angela Eschler Editing and Heather B. Moore. She has Precision Editing. They're in Utah. They're both best of state. You would think they would be at loggerheads, right? Because they're competing for clients. And guess what they do? They share stuff back and forth. They refer each other. They are partners in this, in the sense of we're collaborative. That's what I recommend. Collaborate with all these people and then find the way that you complement. So like I said, Susie would get together with a yoga person and whatever, and then you could do a master class or a webinar. That's what I did with my webinar a couple of years ago. We did Let's Do This. I invited someone into who was organization, someone who was mindset, and someone who was fitness. And then I was all about the life vision. And we complemented each other perfectly. So think about who you could bring in to complement and do a webinar, masterclass, or do an Instagram live, do something. Instagram lives are so easy for you to invite guests on. It's so slick, and you can just give people a taste of what they do, gives them promotion. They have a good feeling about you and you get to reciprocate. It's awesome. So those are different speaking things I encourage you to consider. Love. All right, ladies. So let's plan for sure to do the 31st for graduating. Does that sound like a plan? And then Amber, if you're done sooner, just send me your stuff as much and as soon as possible. Okay. When you send it to peers, I would think you can just do it the same way, and peers will know that they'll get to it when they get to it each week, and no, they're not going to stress it. But just if you're sitting down, I'm like, I'm just going to get it all done. I'm going to bang it out, right? Do 1 or 2 of the 10 minutes, but don't do all of them until you get feedback. Don't do the 20-minute until you've gotten a lot of feedback. And then you can make that 20-minute the best that it can be. But let's plan for the 31st. And if you have any questions between now and then, let me know. But bring your speaker checklist completed next week and we'll go through it. Okay? Sound good? Susie, we're keeping you in our prayers. I love you.
Thanks.
All right,
See
ladies.
you guys.
Love you. Have a
Love
great
ya.
week. Bye.
Bye-bye.